to decide to do something for people. But it's an honor, and it's a suffering that is a long meditation. And so people that are natural empaths, I really make sure and ask that you guys check in with your self-care practices. So, answering the call. I started a nonprofit. I actually started two 503Cs. One was called one was called Sparta, and one was called Outserve Trans. So Outserve was a brainchild of a man named Josh Seifert. He was a lieutenant in the United States Army, and Josh created Outserve because there was no LGBT place for service members to come to. This is before the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. This happened in 2010. And so, the big highlight of that would be, like, do you guys remember Lieutenant Dan Choi? The crazy guy that, like, handcuffed himself to the gate outside of the White House? No? Before your time? All right, well, anyway, Dan Choi was a part of this. So you can kind of understand how kind of radical we were as young people in my early 20s. But Josh created this program called Outserve, and so all these LGBT people in the military, before the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, decided to join, and it was a Facebook group. Imagine Facebook group, and there was more than 3,000 people in it after he had started. Because of that number, I created Outserve Trans because I realized, as a person that walks between, that there was no trans representation. So I said, hey, what do we do for trans people? And so when I created that, I started in 2008 with a woman, her name's Anika Jackson. She's also a retired military service member, and within 3 months we had 1,500 people in that group. It's a pretty substantial number. So that obviously keys you in that there's a need for that work. And so in 2013, those Outserve and Outserve Trans kind of fell distant and fell apart a little bit. And so I created another nonprofit that was member-based that gave counseling, life coaching, providing legal aid for trans people. It was called Sparta. I started that, co-founded that in 2013. So what does this all mean? Well, it means that this is how we started changing the trans family later on. And so the first thing that we focused on was the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And so, like I said, my mom served during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and it was miserable. A lot of people were put out of service. A lot of people still, believe it or not, today, got discharged with dishonorable discharges and are still doing legal court cases. I hear from people every day, actually, that send me emails and stuff like that, looking for legal aid or for finances to help support, to change that. So that's so poignant is because when you get a bad conduct or other than honorable discharge from the military, it ruins your career opportunities for the rest of your life. McDonald's won't hire you. You can't work at Walmart. You might not even be able to walk into a construction job. And it strips you of all your veterans' disability benefits and your education benefits. So there's still people fighting today for that. So in 2011, we run Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Josh, myself, a lot of really good senators, Christine Gillibrand, and things like that. We had been taking meetings with them. We'd been using our personal time, our military vacation time. I would fly for 2 days to Washington, D.C., and then fly back to Alaska. That's where I was stationed. I was at Fort Wainwright at the time. Or I would just save up on my vacation and never take a vacation so that I could do that work. And that's the labor of love I dedicated. So we got that in 2011, and then we had equal rights. Now you're like, well, didn't we win that with the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell? No, we did not. We didn't get anything. All you got was the right to serve. But they still they could hold that against you on your service record. So while you're serving, they could write that on your performance evaluation. They could say your partner didn't get benefits, so like accessibility to base, healthcare, things for your children. If you were in a domestic partnership or a same-sex marriage, you couldn't get those benefits. Retirement, things like that wouldn't be given to your spouse. And so that was the next thing we focused on in 2013. Was making sure that we won that equity because of the discrimination that came with that. And so we got that in 2013. It was a conglomerate, like I just mentioned. And I don't know. Make sure you guys can read. And so the next thing that we worked on after that was Women in Combat, aka Title IX. And that's where I fall back to the previous slide where I was talking about setting precedents as a woman. That's really important to my story, is the things that I did as a woman. that was the argument that we used, was my service record, as well as what Rachel Schuler had done with me in order to win that legislation for women in combat in 2014. Without that legislation, I don't think we would have won the trans ban. And quite frankly, the United States military, being the masculine and patriarchal society that it is, I don't think they would have ever valued women or trans women particularly if we had not done Title IX for equity. And then that brings us to the trans ban, the meat and potatoes. The trans ban. The first thing I like to say about it is that it was something that was discussed since 1993. Does anybody in here know from their parents what 1993 was? No? I'm seeing a lot of blank stares. Okay, 1993 is when Bill Clinton signed in Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So that's probably before some of you guys were born. It's when it was written into policy. And they had talked about trans people since 1993 as part of military policy. And previously before that, when they had wrote the ban for homosexuals back in the 70s during the DSM-4, sorry, I always want to say 5, but it's 4. It's because it's in my wheelhouse. But the DSM-4, they had talked about trans people then. So it had already been a conversation that was on the table for a very long time. So, 1993, they banned, openly serving gay people, and also too, Bill Clinton was approached. He was approached by the director of the Department of Justice. He was also approached by the director of, the DoD, or Department of Defense, and they discussed it. And then they decided then that they were going to table the issue. They had already actually written up legislation to start attacking that, but they decided they were going to table the issue until it was politically, the term that they use in the language was until the climate was politically advantageous. You can see how tokenized people are in that regard. So politically advantageous. So when we were working on the trans ban, I would say the real work for myself started in the beginning of my service in 2006. By doing those things as a woman. I never knew that would translate to what it is today, but a woman's experience in the military is one of it being a male-dominated environment where you have to see that there is a bureaucracy and it kind of has to equate to your toughness and your outward position of masculinity. I think that if I hadn't been such a masculine moving person, that I would not have had as much traction, and I say that honestly. I also think that if I had been a trans, feminine, or feminine presenting person in that sort of in-between state, like I said, in-between worlds, that I would not have had as much traction. And the example that I give for that is my good friend Kristen Beck. Kristen and I served together during one of my deployments, which was to Afghanistan in 2012. She's a retired Navy SEAL. She had to wait until after her career to transition. I, on the other hand, transitioned while I actively served. Why? I always ask people why. I want you to think about that. Yeah. So I started my transition technically in 2009. Started taking hormones. I talked to my primary care doctor while I lived in Alaska. Drove all the way to Anchorage, Alaska to get a legal prescription. Drove all the way back up to Fairbanks, Alaska. It's an 8-hour drive. It sucks. And there's no gas stations along the way. And I gave that prescription to my primary care doctor, and they're like, okay, you have a prescription, I'm gonna give you an excuse in your service record. I'm gonna say you need to take this because you're tired. Which is funny, but so I took that, but you have to think too, so I went through those selection processes, and they do a psychological evaluation, and they do a medical review. Why did I get through the gate? Being trans is illegal, and then also too, at the time being a homosexual was illegal. So, but those things, those conferences, that communication, that outward integrity are reasons why I'm so successful in the military, and what we use as a blueprint and precedent to negotiate trans people in the future, and at the time that we're continually serving, to move through the space. So, with the trans ban, we won all of those things, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, Women in Combat, and all those things. And so it was doubtful that we were going to win the trans band. Outserve, and the reason we collapsed in 2013, had said that it was an unwinnable fight. And if it was winnable, it would take at least another 10 years to happen in 2013. And so that didn't sit well with me, and I'm an overachiever. So I was like, this can't happen, there's thousands of people that need this. There's thousands of trans people that have economic disparity, that need a job, that need accessibility, and how do we do this? And so I made it happen. I took personal time, like I said before, flew back and forth to make this happen. I never took a vacation pretty much my entire military career, so for 11 and a half years to do this work. But it's worth it. So, and that brings me to the statement, which is, for everything given, something is owed. And that is part of my culture. I mentioned the Sundance. I mentioned, the historical suffering of my ancestors, things like that. For everything given, something is owed. So the only reason that I can do this work is because I suffer for the people. And so the trans military ban is something that needed to be given for the people to set a precedent for equity for all of our country, because a soldier is held in such high regard no matter what throughout our society. Soldiers are given handshakes, they're given hugs when they come back from war. Soldiers are seen as the moral epitome. And so if you can change the society to believe that a soldier can be this person, a trans person, and move through this space, it sets a precedent for the entire rest of society that cannot be moved. Because who's gonna challenge that honor? And so that's why I overachieved. I made sure I had a great service record. I made sure, I was, perfect at all times. And a lot of stress. A lot of stress, which is that center photo, giving voice to survivors of violence. I went through a lot through my childhood. I grew up poor. There's sexual assault in my family history. There's, systemic starvation from just being poor. Native folk, we call them Indian problems. Drinking, things like that on reservations are really bad. The average age of people that live on my reservation in school age and for my teacher is 52 years old. I'm 31. That means I've lived pretty much more than half my life if I still lived on a reservation. So it's a lot of suffering, But also too, I gave up what I signed up for. I gave up that calling, because to do the trans military ban, I had to step out and step forward. And in the military circles, no matter if you're doing a great thing or you're doing a terrible thing, both nails get hammered and stick out. So, because there's a certain amount of attention that comes to that person. And so at the time, I was a sergeant.